And we're back with the panel. Earlier this week, I had an interview with the former NSC spokesman Tommy Vitor. Charles, I asked him whether he changed in the CIA talking points from attacks to demonstrations, and he said he didn't remember, even though this is kind of a central point. And then he said, dude, it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, well, the dude works hard in changing stuff that officials are supposed to say, and he says, you know, I do a lot of this, that's what a bureaucrat does. How can I remember? Well, you would remember if somebody asked you, there were documents, there's been an argument about this for 2 years, and he and his cohorts are accusing Republicans who are asking legitimate questions of being entirely politically motivated. So he should be interested, he should go back, and he should answer. And the fact that he says he doesn't remember, it's a long time ago for an issue of this importance, is rather suspicious. But I think what's most interesting is they don't have a resort. They've been trying to say the lie told by Susan Rice. Now, she might have been unwitting or deliberate. I'll give her a pass on that. But what she said was not true. And that they've been saying it all came from the CIA. We now know that the CIA had to alter the talking points under heavy pressure from the White House and from the State Department. But also, this is the smoking gun. This is the memo that exposes the direct White House intervention, the prep call. She was prepped. There was a call. There was explanation. And the emphasis entirely is on a protest that did not happen in Benghazi, on a demonstration that didn't happen in Benghazi, that became this attack. And the fact that they pushed this, and they had Rice say it, and when we had Gregory Hicks, who was #2 in Libya, say under testimony that his jaw dropped when he heard this, that was the first electric moment. This is the second electric moment.
Not only Gregory Hicks, Steve, but Mike Morrell, the former deputy director of the CIA, said when he saw Susan Rice that he understood the protest part, but they had nothing to do with the video.
Right. They're making a major distinction between the set of talking points that the intelligence community provided and which, as Charles notes, heavily edited after input from the State Department, from the White House. But that set of talking points didn't mention the video. It wasn't about the video. And then Susan Rice's story was all about the video, in concert with the emails that we've now seen from Ben Rhodes and the other arguments that we've heard, or that we saw in the White House issued talking points. I think the most interesting thing when you look at the new batch of documents is this reclassification or classification of documents that were previously unclassified. I mean, the timeline is fascinating. June of 2013, Judicial Watch makes a FOIA request for these documents. August of 2013, the House Oversight Committee subpoenas the documents. In February of 2014, somebody, somewhere, classifies previously unclassified emails. And then in April of 2014, as part of this release, we get redacted versions of those emails that have been retroactively classified. I think I would expect that you'll have House committees and maybe others looking into exactly why those documents were classified after the fact.
George, Tommy Vitor said to me that the president was not in the Situation Room that night. And when asked where was he said the White House. I guess the question is, people wanted to know where the commander-in-chief was that night in this breaking situation. At that point, they don't know where the ambassador is. We don't find out he's dead until much later. And the battle's still going on. And we had never, up until that interview, heard anybody from the White House say that he was not in the Situation Room.
That's one question, is the direct involvement of the president acting on information as it was coming in. A second question is, it seems to me, did Hillary Clinton, who at 10 o'clock releases this statement about a video, did she talk that night with Leon Panetta? And if so, what did Leon Panetta say? Because he sits under a torrent of information coming in from around the world to the U.S. military and the Pentagon. So again, it's a question of what did they know? It's not new for government to massage the truth. It's not new for them to go as far as they can possibly go with a particular comforting theory, such as the video. What is new, and this would be the real smoking gun, would be at some point for enough evidence to accumulate that they were saying this when they had to know that it was no longer true.
We have heard testimony multiple times that the military, the intelligence community, and others on the ground in Benghazi were putting up through their chains, Mara, that this was definitively a terrorist attack. The CIA station chief said this was not an escalation of a protest, to try to emphasize to people, don't go with the protest.
You know, George raised the question about durability. You know, how long did it take? Within a week, September 11th is the attack. By September 18th, he's on the David Letterman show saying terrorists exploited this video. It was part of it. They used it as an excuse. Then September 19th, National Counterterrorism Center head says this was definitely a terrorist attack. So things started to change within about a week. So the question is, before that happened, was this a purposeful, you know, effort to lie about it? And did they know? The question you asked, we don't have the answer to that yet. And the other thing that's amazing...
The problem is that we're going to see a timeline piece in just a minute, but the president then references the video in the United Nations speech on September 25th.
Yes, he almost went back to his previous...
And he talks about it again in a couple of interviews. So that's really the tough part, is you have all these people on the ground saying this was an organized military strike on a facility, and yet 14 days later, it's not getting through, or purposely.
And you would expect, if the White House, in fact, if none of this information actually made it to the White House, I mean, we have the State Department email from Beth Jones talking about Ansar al-Sharia. We have a CIA memo on September 12th
point to that
talking
one.
about
Beth Jones from the State Department says the Libyans thought that this was former Gaddafi people, and the State Department says no, it's Ansar al-Sharia tied to al-Qaeda extremists, and we know that they were behind it.
That comes from somewhere. Where did she get that information? One assumes from the CIA station chief, who had also written a memo, Greg Hicks. There had been a video teleconference. There's a new DIA document that hasn't been much discussed that was published just before Ben Rhodes sent his email on September 14th laying out who was to blame. The White House had to have this information.
The tough part about this story is getting it all in context, trying to go back to that time and make sure you understand it all. Sometimes that takes time. When we return, we'll take you back to those horrific events in Benghazi and the surprising political fallout that followed.